Hashem, your God, blessed you like he spoke to you. Re'eh liber, where did God speak? Baruch atah ba'ir. Blessed shall you be in this city. And what does God say to you? V'avata goyim rabim, and you will lend to many nations. V'ata lo tavot, but you will not borrow. U'mashalta b'goyim rabim, and you will rule many nations. U'v'chol lo yimshol, but they won't rule over you. Zok Rashi Re'eh kol lashon hava'ah. Here there's a grammar one. So v'avata goyim, you will lend to many nations. You might think you're going to borrow from one and lend to the other, that the Jews will be the middlemen, borrowing from one, lending to the other. No, Talmud Omar, you won't borrow, you're just a lender. Not really the way the banking system works today. Seth, are we excited for Yontif? Do you have some good tunes with Eli?
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. Thank you for, we're in chapter 34. Seth, watching you teach Eli is like watching Aaron Rodgers teaching Zach Wilson on Hard Knocks.
I wasn't teaching. We are.
No, I heard you teaching.
Equally
No.
teaching each other.
I heard you mentoring. Very sweet. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Now, verse. You will rule. Okay, you will rule over many nations. Yachol. You might think goyim achirim u'shem alecha. You might think other nations will rule over you. Says the verse of the Chol Yimshol, they won't rule over you. Okay. Now the verse says, when you have a poor man from one of your brothers, amongst your gates, in your land, and Hashem gives to you, don't harden your heart. Don't close your hand from your brother who's poor. If your brother who's poor needs your help, don't close your hand. Rashi says, Ki evyon hatav ta'ev kodem. Whoever is more wanting takes precedence. Your brother from your father comes before your brother from your mother. She'arecha from your gates. A fundamental principle: the poor people of your city come before the poor people of another city. But I would suggest that maybe today this is not as applicable, because today it's a global world, a global economy. So you can, you're certainly supposed to be responsible for the poor people who live in your city, but
poor people are local, not the ones you see are local.
No. We get requests from global. People say they need help with the surgery, this, that. We always get. Yeah, but you're right. But we're not, most of the charity is not like people you see on the street asking for handouts. It's more sophisticated. Like people approach you and say they need support. Okay, anyway, also some people say Jerusalem is everybody's city. Those mates, do not harden your heart. Rashi says, sometimes there's a person who's he's in pain. Should he give or not give? Therefore, it states, do not harden. Sometimes there's a person who stretches out the hand to give and closes it. Therefore, it says, do not close your hand. Yes, Jerry.
With regard to giving charity to locals rather than strangers, those that are far away. Can we apply that now to all of these refugees from all over the world that are approaching our southern border? Don't we have a responsibility for the homeless veterans that live in our cities, the blacks that have been subjugated, and the indigenous people whose land we stole? Don't those people have first choice rather than opening up our southern borders to the rest of the world?
No, that's a serious question, which I don't really feel like I've thought enough about to be able to respond in a sophisticated manner. I mean, there is obviously, the question is, it's one thing to be pro-immigration, which certainly, in theory, I think most people should. But then the problem is that we live in a social welfare state. So you let more people in, then you're reducing the amount of services you can provide for people who live there already. So it's a very serious question how we allocate the resources of ourselves and our country. It's our serious policy questions, which oftentimes are not the ones debated when they debate them in the media. It's just like rhetoric that's explosive, and it's not really about the serious policy issue. And it's a real serious policy question because in theory, I would say, yeah, you want to let everybody come in. Why not? But then in practice, it means that the people who need the MRIs who are in your neighborhood already, well, now they're not going to get the MRIs. So I think that you're asking a very good question, and you need somebody who's very seriously has a grasp on these types of questions to address them.
I was thinking in terms of from a halachic point of view.
Yeah, no, from a halachic perspective, there is a value that you have to provide for the people of your town first, but it doesn't mean that you don't provide for the other people. And also, once somebody shows up in your town, then he's considered to be in your town. So it's not simple. And also, they're typically speaking not asking rabbis, although a lot of rabbis are opining on this question. But Janet has a question. Yes, Janet.
I'm thinking of when my grandparents came to this country.
Yeah.
Around in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hard to come into the United States. And how they were coming seeking a better life and a better opportunity and freedom from slums and all sorts of things. And they didn't have a hard time getting into the country. They were lucky to be here, and if they hadn't, then needless to say, would have perished in the Holocaust.
So Janet is saying that she remembers when her grandfather and her father, they came into the country. So and they were embraced by the country, and otherwise they would have perished. And my own father, he came into the country in 1945 from Cuba. But on the other hand, and I'm very, very sympathetic to that. I'm just saying the other side of the coin is not that we want everybody to perish. Those immigrants happened before there was Medicaid and Medicare. It happened before, I don't know if there was welfare then, but it was certainly before Obamacare, before this national institutionalized medicine, where there's just a limited amount of resources, and the whole country was different then. So I'm just saying that that's the two sides. It's not everybody could come in or nobody could come in. It's we have this amount of money for medical care, and the more people we let in, the less people we could give the care to. That's the other argument. I'm not telling anybody what to think. I'm just saying those are the two sides of her. Yes.
Does Rashi, you may get to this when we finish the Rashis, and if so, I'm sorry to jump ahead, but is Achicha loosely translated as your brothers in mankind, or is it trying to say that it has to be a Jewish person?
So the Talmud discusses this, and the Talmud says that we give money to the Gentiles with the Gentile poor with the Jewish poor. We did this in Tractate Kitten for the sake of peace. We're not supposed to say to a Gentile who asks us for a handout, I'm only giving to the Jews. And we're supposed to give to everyone because otherwise it's going to be very bad. But clearly, those who are closest to you comes first. It doesn't only mean those who are geographically closer. I mean those who share your ideology, your relatives, those people who are the same worldview as you. So that's the answer. But you should definitely give some to those who are not Jewish, or else it's going to cause a lot of animosity. But don't worry about it. Whenever I go into the hospitals, all I see are Jewish names on the donor board. When I go into the universities, I see a lot of Jewish names. So I think the Jews are fulfilling their mitzvah of giving to the non-Jews, but they give much less to the Jews than to the non-Jews, the Jewish mega donors. That's my feeling. But anyway, okay, me'achicha avyon, from your brother who's poor. In lo titain lo sofcha liot achiv shel avyon. Rashi says this is a warning. You have to give to your brother the poor. If you don't give him, he'll be your brother in being poor. That's what he says. Meaning to say, give to him or else you're going to be poor like him. And now this is a very, very controversial Rashi, very controversial. We'll see it. Ki patoch tiftach et yadcha. You have to open up your hand for him. Va'avei tavitenu. You shall give him money. Dei machsaro asher yachsaro. How much money do you have to give to the poor man? That which he is lacking. That which he is lacking. What does that mean? Patoch tiftach. Keep giving to him. I feel come upon him, even many times. I.e., even many times you should give to him. Ki patoch tiftach, hare ki mi'lashamesh b'lashon ela. Ki means rather. Va'avei tavitenu, grant him money. Im lo ratza b'matana, if you don't want to give him a gift, ten lo ba'ava, give him to him as a loan. You have to give him. Now we come to the day machsaro, give him that which he's missing. You're not commanded to make him wealthy. Asher yachsarlo, which is lacking for him. Afilu susar kovulav ve'eved larutz lefanav. So this is the controversial part. You have to give him that which he is lacking. Even a horse to ride on and a slave to run in front of him. Meaning to say there's no objective amount. It's subjective. And the Talmud in Ksuvos tells us that this refers, not Ksuvos, it's not in Ksuvos, it's prior to that. I think it's in Shabbos, that Hillel, who was himself very, very poor, destitute, a man came to him asking for charity. And the man needed charity, and he needed a horse to ride on and a servant to run in front of him. Much more lavish lifestyle than Hillel. So it would be like somebody asking for charity and saying, well, I need to go business class because last year I was going business class because I'm a businessman, and now I lost everything. And so Hillel, who himself couldn't afford anything, he ran in front of the horse. He acted as the servant to this man. Because when you give the charity, you're not just trying to give the person the money, you're trying to make them whole to where they were in life because they lost a lot of money. You're trying to make them whole. And so therefore it's not objective, it's subjective. It's very controversial. A lot of people don't like this. A lot of people think, well, why should I be giving money for this guy to stay in his fancy house? Let him sell his fancy house and live like me in a more modest house. But the whole idea of the charity is you're supposed to bring back the person to the level they were at. I don't know. It's a little bit. What? It says, because it says, Dei mechsaro asher yachsaro, even that which is lacking for him. Even a horse upon which to ride and a slave to run in front of him.
Yeah, but the operative word is indigent.
So
I am a Tesla.
let me read here the footnote here, which is quoting from the Talmud. The seemingly superfluous which he is lacking implies that each person's needs are determined individually. If he was very wealthy before he became poor, we are required to give him even a horse and servants if he had been accustomed to them. If, however, the poor person was not rich, we do not give him the luxuries of the rich, as Rashi has stated in the preceding comment.
This is the Talmud.
Yeah.
Where'd they get that up?
That's from Hillel. That's what Hillel did. Well, that's what this verse says. Give him that which he is lacking.
Well,
I told you it's controversial. I know Steve would be hot about this.
I just don't believe it. It's right.
Well, but let me share with you like this, Steve.
Said to make the rich.
Well, Steve,
No longer rich.
but Steve, let me ask you a question. Let's just say you had a friend your whole life, and the friend's living in a modest 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, in the, probably has a mortgage of $200,000 and he lost his job. So to keep him whole in that house for a year, you probably have to raise, let's say, $100,000 from his friends, his very close friends, to keep him there. Or else they could say to him, go live in the homeless shelter. You'll have a house over your head. Why do we have to make you rich? So that person will be humiliated to go there.
That's an
Yeah.
extreme, that's an extreme thing.
Actually don't think it's an extreme example because as a rabbi, I saw many situations like that. That I'd probably say if I saw it 20 times, that would be an understatement of people who needed money to be able to live in a way that's not humiliating, whereas other people, like poor people in 99% of America, would be able to suffice on much less. But the point is that it's about being humiliated, especially when he's around all his other friends who are living in houses. Are we going to tell him he has to live in a shelter? All you need is a roof over your head, maybe your own apartment. So we'll give him a small studio apartment in Southeast. Because he's going to be humiliated. He wants to be hanging out with Steve at the yeshiva.
You're not giving him, you're lending him with collateral?
Well, Rashi says, if he doesn't want to accept the money as a gift, give him as a loan. So you should try to get, look, every situation is different. There's no situation that you can't have a one family. There are some people who abuse the problem.
No,
What?
They're discussing what's right.
No, I'm just saying, not every case needs nuance. There's also, Steve, obviously, some people, there's bringing somebody back up, and then there's buying them first-class plane tickets because that's what they took when they were CEO of Amazon. So, yeah, there's extremes, and you have to have nuance. And you have to have people you trust who are making these decisions for the community.
In general, do most communities have a requirement that they give a certain amount of money to the poor or not?
That's a very good question. That the Talmud discusses the idea of giving 10%, but that's not a requirement. But there used to be, no, it's not an individual requirement, but there used to be in the Jewish communities a specific amount that you needed to give. You were like tax. You had to give this amount to charity for the poor. There was a tax, and then if you didn't pay it, they gave you lots of tsaros. Today, nobody has to really share their tax returns unless they're running for office and they're supposed to share it, but they're not required to. What?
Nothing. They change it, so it looks good.
Oh, you could change your tax returns?
Yes,
How do you do that?
you amend them.
I never knew that.
You can amend tax returns, he was saying, to make them look better. Meaning you file them one way, and then you go back and say, I'm filing this way, and that's the one that is on the permanent record.
Okay, but
It's not terrible, is it?
No,
It's not terrible, it's cheap. Well, I'm not sure about this notion. Worried about someone's dignity. You have to worry about what someone thinks.
okay, but
More worried about that.
I do.
Yes, I do too. And why doesn't the group have something just for all the people on the bottom? It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but it has to enable them to live easily. Many people can't.
you're asking me a lot of good questions, and I'm just no, I can't. That's why you're my mother. You ask a lot of good questions. A lot of good questions. So, okay.
No, but it's an ethical question. I mean, it's not, this goes in the wrong direction, it seems to me.
Yeah, no,
Something's wrong with the Talmud. Makes sense.
listen.
I think
The only thing I could say is,
taking care of people who are.
let's just say it like this, Steve. Let me say it like this. Let's say the guy was the president of the synagogue. a very charitable man. He's always helping people. Then he had a little bad luck in business, and now he has no money. Do you think the Jewish community should say to him, listen, you're going into the exact same apartment as the guy who is the drunk and he's a homeless man, and we put him in this communal one bedroom? Or do we say, let's help this guy get back on his feet. Let's put him in his place. Let's give him a generous.
And that's fine. If you do that, and let's say you have $10, you give them $9 and $10, and there's very little left for what people really need.
Right. So that's what it's. That's why it depends. Every situation is different. Every situation is different, and so that's why if it's a Jewish community that's relatively wealthy, and then they have a president, and there's plenty of money that they could give to everyone, they're just going to give this guy a little bit more. It's a little bit different. I mean, there's some people who argue that nobody should ever be living in anything more than like the bare requirement, because there are people starving in Africa and we're not caring for them while we're living in these big McMansions. So
Well, you need people on the big
McMansions.
Whatever, because there's always going to be a problem later on. So somebody has to be in charge of it by being wealthier to begin with. Then when things get bad, they can help people more easily.
Beautiful.
Really?
I like it.
I like it.
All right. So okay, we have a few more psukim here. So the pasuk tells us. So what does the pasuk say? Okay, I told you it was going to be controversial. Hishamerecha, guard yourself. More. You should guard yourself lest there will be the matter in your heart of wickedness, saying, Karvashnat hasheva shnat hashmita, v'rayin cha b'achicha b'yom v'rotitelo, v'kara lecha et Hashem v'yavcha chet. Hello there, Leah and Gabrielle. Leah is your site for her brother, blessed memory, who I know he was a friend of mine, but now I'm sorry to say I'm forgetting his first name.
Alan.
Oh, Alan, yeah, he was very sweet.
No, that's the wrong brother.
Oh, it's the wrong brother.
He was sweet.
Who's the other brother?
Craig.
Oh yeah, Craig was sweet. I didn't know Alan.
No, yeah, he didn't.
Alan, I strike it from the record. Alan might not have been sweet. I don't know him.
He was I call him turbulent.
Okay, we call him Turbulent Alan. That's what my father says. When they had the two people, there was a guy who he passed away and nobody could find anything good to say about him. So nobody knew how to give the eulogy. So finally one guy got up and what did he say?
His brother was worse.
His brother was worse.
Brother was worse.
Continue.
Okay. So I'm sorry, we have a lot of emotion here tonight because Janet has a yard site and Leah has a yard site. So we'll do this. He says, more or less you say in wickedly, the seventh year is coming closer, and and then you're afraid to give to your brother who's poor. So be very careful lest it be coming, and then you'll say that you have a sin. So, meaning to say, as the seventh year comes close, and then you don't want to give him the money because you say, if I give him the money, then I'm not going to get it back at the sabbatical year. Rashi says, Yachal mitzvah. Do you need something?
I wanted a cup.
A cup of water? Eli, can you please bring a cup for Papa? He's going to get seltzer here. So, we'll stop the recording here. Let's stop the recording here. Sorry, we got a lot going on here. I'm sorry for stopping a minute early. Shkoyach to everybody. There's a lot going on.